Hi, team. Welcome to your first data visualization assignment. So I'm hoping this helps kind of frame what the rest of these are going to look like, and we'll just jump in. So what we're going to do with this one is we're going to analyze America's fastest growing companies. So it's going to be very, very similar data that you did or messed around with for our last sort of technology access assignment, but we're going to go a whole lot deeper. And so as you go through here, I have kind of the basics that we'll spend a lot of our time with. We're not going to do a ton in Excel. I will transition a little bit more to building other things in Excel and cleaning data as we go throughout the term. But early on, I just want to focus on building different types of visualization and a few of the kind of best practices. So in terms of the due date, not the due date, check the learning management system. It may be modified. By the time you get this assignment, I'll have it in here, but I want to be flexible and make sure that we're going along sort of in a timely manner that we want to get through. All right, so I want to frame these all around something you would actually see in the business world. And so for this one, you're going to be a business intelligence analyst at a company called Venture Capital Partners, so something we've made up. But it's a Phoenix-based investment firm that specializes in identifying and investing in high-growth companies across the United States. The firm manages a portfolio of approximately $500 million, and it's just looking to understand the data on, hey, America's fastest-growing private companies, which luckily we have data on. So please make sure you're using this data set and not the one from the previous, just because I have less in here. We're going to do some very, very simple cleaning as we kind of go through. The managing partner has asked you to analyze the data here, sort of help with maybe potentially make investment decisions, or at least help us explore different trends. And they kind of guided you, which a lot of managing partners may not do, but they're like, I've looked at this data and some things that may be interesting. We don't have to look at all of these, but it's just to get your kind of brain thinking about things. But which industries are most represented among high growth companies? And how does industry concentration vary across different performance tiers? Looking across geographic pattern, which states or metro areas are identified as these kind of innovation hubs allow for growth? How do company rankings correlate with geographic or industry factors? Industry specific, again, geographic concentration. So we'll do a lot with kind of map stuff early on. As we can. Your analysis is going to help the investment team identify different promising sectors for investment. Again, it's right now, it's not going to be the final thing that we use. If anything, we're just going to build some sort of exploratory dashboards where we can dive deep into the data using a little bit of Excel, because it does help to kind of clean the data up early. And then we'll jump and spend most of our time in Tableau, applying some very basic principles and honestly just learning how to use the tool and a lot of its functionality as we go through. Make sure you're following along closely, because everything builds on itself. So if you miss something, it becomes a lot harder as you go through. Hopefully you have access to all the technology that we're going to need in the course here. You just need to make sure you have the desktop version of Excel, and you have the Tableau Public application downloaded and opened here. So I used to work in desktop and that other app. As you go through, it does take a little bit of time to load, so make sure it loads. And you probably have, if you get this, you can update before you start working on it. Honestly, I'll tell it to download and install when I quit, which I'll quit here in a little bit and let it install while we kind of build stuff. And you may not see things there just because you don't have as many visuals in the past as you go through. And so once you have that and you have the data, make sure you're using this data and not the one again from the last one we worked with. We're going to do two things. I'm going to grade it on number one. I'm going to build a bunch of visuals with you, and then I'm going to use some of those to create my own dashboard. And so all of that is going to be, did you follow along? Did you replicate exactly what I did? Then, because I do want you to find ways to differentiate yourself, I'm going to have you do an independent sort of analysis and dashboard creation. I'm not going to kind of fully take the training wheels off yet. And so all I need you to do is you're going to create one of your own dashboards, and you're going to use one or at least two of the visuals that I created and did not use to build your own dashboard. So a way to kind of start and differentiate yourself from others in the class. That way you all come out with this very, very unique portfolio. The big thing with that is, again, you're going to need at least two. You can use more if you want. It's just things get a little bit cluttered as we move past maybe three visuals, but we'll talk about that as we go through. Things that I want you to always kind of go ahead and start practicing is professionalism. All of these, like formatting, layout design, making sure I can see everything. There is no spell check in the actual application, although there is one in the command window, which is kind of odd. But being very, very cautious with that, using consistent color schemes and visual hierarchy. So you don't know that yet, but once we kind of build and I keep lecturing on it, it'll be more clear, but I want you to always kind of think about it, and I'll talk about it as we go through. And obviously, I won't grade you on things that I haven't shown you. But thinking about things like clear descriptive titles, labels, all of those kind of pieces. In terms of deliverable and the submission instructions, so I'm going to have it set up such that there's only one folder and it's easy for kind of grading, but you're going to submit a link to your Tableau public profile where each visual lives. So you're going to see as I finish, I will save the dashboard such that I can see it. I'll title it, and then I'll take the URL and I'll put it in, or what you'll do is you'll put it in the assignment folder. Please label them. So the first one's going to be the one you do with me. It should be in the data visualization project 1 folder on d2l/brightspace. And then you're going to do your own and submit that. You can submit them separately. You can finish this, do the instructor one, submit it, take a break, then do yours, and then submit that link. That's fine. Just label them for me so that it's easy for me to go around and do grading. In terms of assignment feedback questions, you'll get feedback from me. I try and have it turned around pretty quickly, especially before the next assignment. That way you're not missing multiple things over and over and over. And then if you have questions, obviously email me. You can post on, there's an Ask Your Instructor Flex tutorial section on our course space that you can post there. If it's a question that you email me that I think multiple people will benefit from, I may ask you to go take the question and put it there, and then I'll respond. And so don't be afraid there, especially early on as we're learning. There's lots of small things that are easy to miss. Okay, so there's the overview. Let's jump in and start just clean up our data in Excel a little bit. This data in general is relatively clean. There are going to be some things in here that kind of just bug me on kind of a professionalism manner. So things where it's like city and metro and state long, state short. It kind of bugs me, and it would bug me more if I saw it on kind of a dashboard that like we don't have the kind of proper like capitalization here. So a lot of times before I jump into Tableau, I'm kind of looking around here, and there are ways to modify it. It's just I think it's easier to modify here than it's going to be to modify it later. And so I'm going to do just very, very simple cleanup. This is not going to take us very long. Other data sets will be a little bit kind of nastier, but I'm not going to spend that time yet. I wanted to get us into the tool a little bit earlier. So early on, I'm going to just get this so it's properly formatted. And so I'm going to go ahead and just copy this, and hopefully we're learning Excel skills as we go through. But you can use this equals proper, and so it converts this text to the proper case, where the first letter in each word is uppercase and then it's lowercase. So then I'm going to do proper. And then I would just click on this. And so if I hit enter, it then should just have the city capitalized and then across. And then because they're in this kind of location, I'll drag across and then I'll drag down or I'll double click down. Now, some people may want, in terms of state short, the whole thing capitalized, which again, there is a command for that as well. Sometimes you see it in kind of Word as well. So I'm going to change this command or this formula to be something along the lines of capitalization, but it's upper. And so I'll do upper, and then I'll do the state. I'll click there, and then I'll go through and I'll double click this down. And then I don't want duplicates because there's already kind of enough chaos going on here. So I'm going to select this and honestly just copy paste it right over top of here, but without the commands. That way it gets rid of like proper and upper in those kind of pieces. So what I would do is I would probably do something where maybe I want to drag across, Control or Command Shift down, Control or Command C, Control up or Command up, again, Command if you're on a Mac. Then I would go here and I would right click and do the 1, 2, 3. If you're on a Mac, it may be Paste Special Values. You could also go to the Home tab up here, and again, 1, 2, 3 or Paste Special. What I see a lot of people is they forget to copy this, and then they're like, I don't see the paste option. So make sure, again, you copy it. So I'll do again, Control Shift right or Command Shift right, Command Shift down, copy, Command up. And then I'll go here, right click, 1, 2, 3. Then I have them, it all looks nice, and then I don't need this anymore. So I can go ahead and delete. Then as I kind of look across, again, my kind of best practice is I like to go and I'll do some highlighting here, just whatever kind of makes your life a little bit easier. So I like to keep my kind of titles and such a little bit easier to kind of go through. And I'm kind of looking across. This sheet looks pretty clean as we go through. Same thing here. We have kind of company name. I don't know why that's not on the left. Something of that nature. I do know that this is a rate, and this is going to cause problems because I'm going to want to later display this as a percentage. But if you click on this and make it a percent, notice that it's off by a factor of 100, and that's because how Excel and Tableau is set to think about percentages is to think between 0 and 1 instead of 0 and 100. And so knowing that if I want it to be kind of structured the way that I want, what I would probably do is I would go ahead and insert a column, copy this, paste, and then just make a little note to myself that this is going to be a percentage measure. And then I'll do equals, and I'll take this number and then divide by 100. All right, so this is 5.4433. I'll double click it down, but that is 541%. It's just I want to display it that way. This is 82%, 63%. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to click on this column, have it set up as a percentage. It defaults to round to the nearest whole number. If you don't like that, you can go ahead and move it out. I generally like anywhere between 0 and 2 decimals. I wouldn't go any further than that. All right, once I have that, because I don't want multiple things kind of jumping across here, what I'll do is I'm just going to copy this, right click again, paste the values. That way I don't have to worry about the formula kind of moving around or being a problem. So then I don't need this anymore. I'll delete it. Revenue, I would probably have it set up so it's at least either accounting or a finance. Now this doesn't bring in, it won't bring this in, I don't think, the formatting when we have it in Tableau, but if I'm ever going to come back and kind of play around with this, I would. And I could build visuals in Excel here. You've already kind of seen that piece, but we're not going to kind of spend our time there. So that's kind of the basics of just cleaning things up. Yeah, and we could leverage and link these across. I know my kind of important variables are going to be rank, so maybe I would do something where I kind of highlight that just as my kind of mental notes. But very, very clean data set that I don't have to worry too much about. And let's just jump into Tableau and get our hands dirty. All right, let's pivot into Tableau here. So number one, make sure you have Tableau open. And then because we know it's an Excel file, we'll go into Microsoft Excel, find where your data is at. I'm not going to make you go along with me here. All right, so find it, you're going to open it. Again, Tableau likes to think a little bit, so let it think. A lot of times on the back end, it's doing some work for us. If you see this option to use the data interpreter, please always select it. A lot of times it's just looking on the back end to kind of clean things up. You can review it, but it should be pretty easy. But you should see then our sheet names. And so usually I'll keep Excel open for us. That way I can just kind of go back and forth and I'll show you like where things kind of show up. But like I'll have financial information, I drag it over, it's just this sheet here. And then I have the general company information sheet that I want it to link. And it should link across unique identifier. If it doesn't, again, sometimes we have to tell it. And so on the financial information sheet here, I know it's unique identifier here, and then I go here, unique identifier on the general. And then it's like, oh, okay, I know how to match those things. So it's going across there. And you can do some things in this place, but a lot of times I let the data come in here. I kind of do a quick review. You can click on it and kind of see basics and overviews. Then I generally will go to sheet one. All right, so this is where we're going to kind of build things. We are going to save early and save often. So a nice thing about Tableau Public now is that we can save locally. And then the last thing we'll do is we'll save it up to our profile. So I would go ahead and just set the tone here and start by saving it locally. So I'll do File. I'll always start the first time. I'll do Save As. And then you could put this in your repository. I like to kind of keep it organized. So I have a folder that I'm going to kind of use. So I'll go in here, and then I would just save this as something like data viz 1, fastest growing, oops, I should spell that right, growing companies, and I'll do save. That way I have it and I can always get back to it, and then I can just constantly be saving. So if things do crash, because sometimes they do, it'll be okay. Let's just start with a little bit more of an extensive overview of this relative to what we did last time where we just kind of jumped in. So how this thing is laid out is over on the left, you'll always see kind of our data tab. There's lots of little things hidden here. So we'll always be kind of careful. It kind of tells us where our data is linked. It has a search bar if we need to search for variables. There is this analytics tab, which will be more useful once we start building visuals. We then have our top toolbar here across the top. Mac people, you may have to go up and see this kind of drop down. But just basic things like file, data, worksheet. So that's what we're working on right now. You see these things on the bottom. We have new sheets where we'll build individual visuals, and then we put them together on a dashboard, and then we can build them into a story if we want. So it kind of progressively goes across those kind of pieces. Let's see where we're kind of working on things. The options that we have are going to be kind of through these different ones. If we build maps, if we want to do formatting, there's lots of like right clicks and formatting stuff, which sometimes it can be easier up here. Be okay. You then have this middle kind of toolbar, which again will be more useful as we go through. But it allows for things like we'll change the view here. We can modify our graphics. You can actually link to different data sets. If we wanted to go back to a new data set and link it, we would click there. So lots of different things that we can kind of do here, which we'll leverage. Presentation mode's a big one when we're thinking about how it looks online. So we'll use that later on. And then last, kind of the review piece is this show me tab. So it's like the most common visuals that we build. And if you hover over them, it talks about like what you need here. And so you'll see as you go through, like if I'm on this text table, I can't move my cursor, but then it's saying for text tables, you need a measure, which is generally something that's numeric, and then a dimension, which is generally something that's categorical. And you'll see measure is green, dimension is blue, which if you go over here on the left, if you're kind of paying close attention, you have these different things and labels here. So it's labeling this ABC, so it's saying that's a categorical factor. And then these numeric signs are green, and that's our quantitative information. And then you'll see this globe. That means, oh, I know this is a location. And sometimes it reads all these in right. Sometimes you have to kind of help it. And so like this metro area, I know that this is actually a location. So I can actually click and change this. Or if you click on it and you do geographic role, sometimes it'll have it in here. I don't think it has metropolitan area set up, so we may not be able to kind of use this as county. It has country, so it's neither of those. It's not really a city if we go look at it, because we actually have the city. It's just the metropolitan area, and so we may not be able to use that that variable as specific as we want. You can also click on the drop down of any of these and do lots of things with it. You've already kind of seen a little bit, but you can do things where you can convert it from a dimension to a measure and vice versa, and things can get a little bit dicey here. So you got to be kind of careful. Trying to think. Okay, so I did a quick Google search here, and we can actually set this up to be a geographic role as a CBSA MSA. And so that'll help us later if we want to build maps, because you can hover over and see, hey, if I want this, which is called a dot map, or a symbol map, which used to be called filled map, you do need geographic dimensions there. And I'll talk about these shapes here in a little bit that you kind of see. A lot of those are going to come from what we have, what we call our marks card. You can drag things on these things. You can click on these things, whether you want to put some text on it, modify the size. You can force different types of visuals that you go in. That's kind of deeper into the program. We won't go crazy there. You'll see me leverage this pages card when we have more like time series data. This is a static data set for one point of time. But later on, if we want to allow sort of some filters across multiple things, we'll use this as we go through. So lots of drag and drop. Columns and rows will be more important. Think about how we kind of do things, but we can drag things up here to our horizontal kind of measures. Same thing with rows, or we can do them here. You can do the double click. I like to think why I'm building things and how I build them, and I think double click just makes life a little bit kind of harder, if that makes sense. So I think the best way to learn is just let's start building things. I'm going to focus on a couple different pieces here early on, just because I think things like revenue and growth rate are very, very important. Again, we could spend a lot of time going through and playing around with this data, but I want us to kind of learn. So the first thing I'm going to do is, honestly, I just want to build kind of like a spreadsheet like this, maybe more on like the financial information based upon what company is. And so I have company name, I have it here and here. I'm going to bring this over first. And then it does have a lot of members, because remember, we have 5,000. That's okay. I'm just going to do add all members. And then I have the ranking that they were on the list. And so I'm going to go over, I'm going to drag it here into columns. It's going to default to some, which I think that's fine for now, just because I only have each company on the list once. So whether I do sum or average or anything like that, it's always going to be the same. It defaults to showing us a bar graph, and I think it's alphabetical with numeric being first. And if I want a table, I'm just going to go to show me and click a table, something like this. Right? And then you could have a very simple table. Again, it's alphabetical. You can do things where you sort on various manners up here. You got to be kind of careful of where you kind of sort. So right now, it's only going to let us sort on that piece. I don't think, yeah. So if you right click, you can do sort ascending, so you can see, oh, our top company, which may make a lot of sense here. And right now, it's got that on the text label. If I actually wanted it to label, so let's say I also wanted to bring out something like revenue, I could bring that into columns, and it's going to start kind of freaking out. Again, I can kind of force it back to a table where it goes through, and now you see this thing called measure names. So now it's actually putting the measure names on each of those pieces that we have and going through it. If we didn't do that, so I'm going to undo, Control or Command Z still works in this. I could think, so notice it's got this T. So what it's doing is it's labeling the rank on the text here. So you could actually bring revenue over to text, and you'll then see it, but then it kind of stacks it that way, which doesn't make a whole lot of sense. I see a lot of people, they'll try and like flip this thing and play it, and so it makes life a little bit harder. So if you know that you want it to kind of be that, one, you can kind of click around and go crazy in this thing and like hope that it works out that way. Again, you can undo, but you'll always see something like measure values down here. And then it's supposed to put measure names. Oh yeah, measure names right here, where you then could drag it and try and move it. and it's not sure like what's going on here. So sometimes you may have to kind of play around with like where it goes. And even then, sometimes it doesn't work, right? And so maybe I'll drag this off and then it has no measure name because it's like, I don't know what you want. And so a lot of times it's just kind of playing around. Don't be afraid to kind of click. I think a lot of times I probably messed up because I probably need revenue in there as well. And then let me take measure names and see if it'll put it on there. It doesn't like to do that. So we'll just have to do this, something like this. Right now, again, I don't mind that it has some on here over and over just because, again, it's only one company. If I had this company in there multiple times, I would honestly want to know, I would probably use average or I could go in and change that. And again, where you would do that is I could do it out here, but once it's out here, it's only going to do it for here. If I want it to always do like revenue, I really want this thing to be a currency um, every single time. And so rather than having to do this every time where I'm in here and I think about how I want to label it and stuff of that nature, what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually go in over here on the left and just set its default properties. So in this case, I'll do default properties. I'll do, right now, sum is fine because again, it's only one. So I'll do number format. I'll do currency custom and I'll do 0 and I'll do okay. Then it always puts it on there, that kind of very professional kind of labeling. I'll kind of do the same thing where if I drag down 3-year growth rate, again, it doesn't really put it where I want it, which is frustrating. I think if I go through and click the table, it'll do there. You can move the ordering of these. So I really want rank to be first. So down in here, right, I'm going to click and I'm just going to drag it. Make sure you see that orange bar or else it's going to replace and drop things. But then you can kind of move it around. And again, I know that these are percentages, so I would want to label it that way. So again, I would go over here on the left, do default properties. I can see that these are relatively large, so maybe I'm going to do 0 decimals. So I'll do default properties, number format. I will then do percentage, and then I'll just say 0 decimals, and I'll do okay. All right, and this thing is huge, and that's why it's ranked number 1, is because it has such a super high growth rate. Little aesthetic things here. Note the name is cut off. I can make it bigger. You could do something where you fit the entire width as you go across and sort of go all the way across. I don't love that because it has all this spacing, so I'll undo, Control or Command Z. You can manually, this one gets a little bit frustrating, you can kind of click and go across here and drag until you kind of see that. That makes a little bit kind of more sense. Maybe the last thing I'll bring out is number of workers. Maybe I'll try and bring it up to rows and see if it will do that. Maybe I'll bring it here. It does not. So again, I'll go show me a table, and then it kind of works out there. And you could do little things where you can kind of customize these. So I could do something where I go to workers, I do this drop down, I would do default properties, I would do number format, and I could do like a custom one. I think this is one where, let me see if this would work. Actually, I'm going to do number custom. I'll do 0. And then this suffix would be something like, I'll do PPL for people, and I'll do okay. And then it has that kind of background. So a little small thing that I think makes things look nice. The last thing that we're going to do is we're going to rename this. I'm going to right click and I'm just going to rename this, and I'll just put like company table, something like that. Because you don't want to get into like Visual 7 and you're like, what is that? And then what we're going to do is we're going to go to File, we're going to go to Save. And it's not great yet, but we can do a lot of different things. So as we go kind of through there, I'm not going to do anything kind of crazy with the sizing or anything. It's just a simple table. That's what we get to do kind of next. So let's create a new visual. All right, so down here, I'm going to go and click this. And then again, what measure you want to look at is kind of up to you. I'm going to kind of focus things around revenue for right now. Again, we could go lots of different ways, but I think that makes a whole lot of sense as at least an initial factor to kind of look at. So what we're going to do is I want to build a map, right? And so I want to build this filled map because I want to look at things geographically, maybe by state, and then I'm going to drill in and look at maybe by city or metropolitan area, kind of like my boss wanted me to. So if I know revenue is my key factor that I want to look at, honestly, this is where I would probably double click and just bring it out. it starts with sum of revenue, and then I got to think, okay, how do I want to see it? If I want one of those filled maps, that's where I'm going to use state. You could use the shorthand version. I like the longhand version just because I think it gives me more information. So again, this one you could double click, or you could click and drag up to there. It always, again, kind of defaults, and we could see this as a bar graph. I think this is fine. I'm not going to mess around with bar graphs just yet. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go to the Show Me tab and then just say, I really want this to be a map. And now you should see it highlighted. So I'll click on that and we'll go in. I'll click on Show Me so it stops. So you see this, I have it. It automatically colors by the numeric factor that we have. So light means small, dark means high. This may be one where I would actually want to look at average now because, right, obviously there are going to be more companies in California and Texas than there are going to be New York. And if you want to look at that, that's fine. There's also another way that we could actually figure that out. And so I'm actually going to add another kind of layer to this where I actually label the number of companies. And so I know that I have a unique number of company names in there because it's one company per list. So what I actually like to do is I can click it and I can drag it and I can drop it on this label. All right, and then it tries to go ahead and default to the actual name, right? Trying to put it on there, it has no idea. It's kind of clueless on what's going on. So I need to modify it in terms of what I want it to actually label. So I'm gonna actually click on this drop down, and then here I'm gonna go to measure, and I'm just gonna say count distinct. I think it could do count as well, but because it's distinct names, I'll do that. So I'll do that. Then I can see, hey, 694 are here, 404 are here, Hawaii, Alaska, 1 and 5, little things like that. And so what I'm going to do is, it's not that I don't care about Alaska and Hawaii and Puerto Rico. It's really just that it's taking up a lot of space that I really want to focus on the continental United States here. So what I'm going to do is, now that I kind of have this visual in a way that I kind of like, I am going to show you a couple different features. So I'm going to first off, I'm going to right click this and rename it. So I'm going to do revenue by state and then just continental. Continental. And then I'm going to do it, I filter out this, but I know I'm going to, like, if I wanted to show Alaska, Hawaii, Puerto Rico, I have ways to do that later on. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to right click and I'm just going to duplicate this. And then I'm going to work off of this piece where I'm just working off the continental US. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take state L, drag it up to filter. I'm going to click on it. And then I'm just going to unselect Alaska. I'm going to unselect Hawaii. And then I'm going to unselect Puerto Rico. All right, so I'm going to unselect Puerto Rico. I'm going to do apply. I'll do OK. And then I'm zoomed in on this map. And I don't have any companies here in Wyoming. And so it just labels that piece. I then do want to make sure that I'm using descriptive titles. And so I would, instead of have this be the sheet name, I'm going to double click in. And so I'm going to do something like count and average revenue by state. This is where I worry because it doesn't have a spell check. So I'll do apply, I'll do OK. And then I want to do this drop down here. So this is where I'm only going to change it to average on this piece. So I'll do measure average. You'll see things kind of change a little bit. So now you're actually looking at, if you're looking across the actual like average revenue of these, right? Tennessee is maybe becoming a little bit more useful. And I'll show you ways to do this. So to clean this up, because I don't really care about Mexico or Canada, and I think it blocks the view, and later on, I'm going to want to put maybe Alaska and Hawaii or something like, and Puerto Rico in these areas. I can now go to this map, and then there's lots of different ones. Sometimes I just have to kind of think about it. I'm going to start with background layers, and you'll see this. What we're going to do is we're going to wash out the background. And as you click and I let you go, I can kind of see and show you. It just gets rid of everything out here that doesn't have data in it. You can modify these things and go into like different forms. It doesn't change a whole lot right now because I washed out the background, but if I didn't, I could go in here and do dark mode and the background kind of stays that way. But again, when I wash it out, it's not going to have a huge issue. I'm going to stick with light right now because I'm already throwing a bunch of things at you. So I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to save. I'm not going to put too much on here. You could try and average and put the labels on there, but notice it's going to be really hard to get like the revenue and stuff over top of these because just the Northeast kind of causes problems. Let's see. In terms of if you want people to be able to maybe play around with this, what if I wanted to look at this map by industry as well? So I could also drag industry up to filter, and then I'm going to have all. So I'm just going to select all and do apply and do OK, and nothing happens. So what I want to do is I want to add this filter over here. So I'm going to do this drop down. I'm going to do show filter, and then you can see this. And now I think this looks hideous, and this is going to get comes over to our dashboard. I generally prefer a drop down where we have what we call a multiple values drop down. There's different ones. You could do single values, so it kind of forces the people to kind of look at that. So if you do that, they are forced to look at one industry at a time, which for this one, it may make the most sense to do that. But if you wanted to look at multiple ones, you could do a multiple values drop down, and then you can kind of select all. There are kind of small things because every time you uncheck, it continues to kind of, how do I want to say it? It continues to want to like update each time you click it rather than like if I could select all that I want and then it kind of changes. So I'll show you how to do that hopefully here in just a little bit. Actually, I'm just going to do it right now. So if you do this drop down right here, and it's hidden under customize, so lots of things that kind of like formatting, everything's kind of hidden. I'm going to do this show apply button. Then what you can do is when you go through, or you can uncheck and then do apply on that. And so for now, I'm going to hit cancel because I don't want it, but that'll be useful later on. And now I've done all these cool things that I didn't do over here. So I'm going to delete this. All right, and then I'm going to go here. I'm going to right click. I'm then going to duplicate. And then what I'm going to do is, it's hard because I have to do multiple ones. I'm going to rename this, and then I'm going to do revenue by state, and then Alaska. And so now here's where I go into my filter. I do this drop down. I do edit. I'm going to select all from my list. So all. Oops. And I'll hit none. And then here's where I just want Alaska. And I'll do apply. And I'll do OK. So then I have that visual here. And then I'm going to right click. I'm going to duplicate once again. I'm going to rename this. And this will be Hawaii. And then I'll do the same thing where I do the drop down, edit filter, and then I'll find Hawaii. And you can do Puerto Rico if you want. I'm not going to, just as we go kind of through. And then I'll connect these maps here in a little bit. But that's one way I can kind of show them throughout there. Let's see. Okay, I think those visuals are good. Let's now do what we call a dot map. So I'm going to use the same outcomes. It's just I want to be able to kind of drill down a little bit more. So I'm going to go in here. I'm going to bring out revenue. I'm again going to modify this to do measure average. I then am going to have, you could start by doing city and then do show me and do your dot map. The problem with this is there are a lot of cities with the same names. And so you really need a hierarchy in this. And so rather than do city and state, I'm going to control or command Z. I'm going to make sure I bring state up in front of this. So then it has the state to connect. Then you can do show me, do this. Now there still are 37 unknowns. If you wanted to modify and I had a lot of time, I would double click in this and do edit locations. And you can do things where you're kind of looking for different ones, right? Whether it's city or state, or I may have to do like a quick Google search or something like that. So if I had a lot of time, I would do that. It's just right now, like I want to be kind of efficient in where we're kind of working through. So I'm not going to do that. I'm going to do here, and then I'm just going to right click and hide the indicator so they don't know. Then I'm going to use my same filter where I don't really want to look at Hawaii and Alaska, things of that nature. So I will do the state into filter, and then uncheck again, Alaska, Hawaii, and then Puerto Rico. We'll do apply, we'll do okay. For what we call dot maps, you cannot wash out the background, which is unfortunate. And so it's just, you can't. We could use, so if I know I want to connect this to another visual, I could bring out those industry filters and stuff, kind of same thing. In terms of if you want to kind of modify the dot, so right now, because it's a dot map instead of a filled map, it's using revenue as just the dot size. I would probably use size and color, and I would be consistent with what you did here, just because it makes more sense. So once they learn it once, they don't have to do it again. So I'm actually going to drag revenue, and I'm going to bring it over to color and drop it. And then I want these to be consistent, so I would do measure, right, and I would do average, something like that. If you want to modify the colors, you can either click on the color card. You could actually go in here and double click and modify the different ones if you want, just various ones that they have. I'm going to stick with blue. If you want to modify the dot size, you can do it here, edit sizes. You can also click on the size card. I think this one's a little bit less precise. It gives you less control, but you can kind of play around with it here just because you do have kind of some smaller ones that aren't making a whole lot of sense, but just working through kind of the findings here. And again, you can go deep down the rabbit hole of go into edit sizes. You have to be careful. So if you do by range, you can do apply, and then you just kind of can modify these around a little bit and see kind of what you think makes sense. You just got to be careful because things kind of overlap kind of quickly. And so it's up to you. I'm going to do automatic and do apply. And then just this kind of shows the differentiation as you go through. It's something that we like. And when we bring this onto a dashboard, this may not even size correctly as well. So we may kind of play around a little bit with it. Okay, and I will name this now instead of sheet 5. This would just be something like revenue by city, something like that. Apply okay. And now right now you only see the city, the state, and then the average revenue. But I know that that's actually a company at least, or if there's only one company in the city, I would like to see it. And so you could do something where you bring company name onto the tooltip. So the tooltip is this information when I hover over. You can see company name, Flyers Energy. It's in Auburn, California. This is Genesis, TriNet, alcohol by volume, little things like that. Notice here you have dots. So this is generally what happens when you have multiple companies in the same city. And so that would be kind of a hard one. And so because I would want to see that. And so this is actually where I'm going to drag this off so it doesn't kind of have that in there. And what we can do is we're going to come back and we're going to put sort of an overview of the city in here, or an overview of the companies in here. So that's getting kind of really deep into it. So I'm going to right click and rename this sheet as well, something like rev by city, but hopefully I'll come back and remember, don't let me forget to kind of put it in there. And again, you can do the modifications. Again, you cannot do the washout and stuff. One thing I do want to show you is once you have it locked in here, you would want to go in and uncheck this allow pan and zoom. And I'm actually going to do that over here where I do map options, and allow pan and zoom, because if not, Like if you see I'm rolling my mouse ball, like if I do that on a dashboard, that's going to be kind of really frustrating. So I'm going to get this thing pinned, and then I'm going to do map options. I'm just going to uncheck allow pan zoom. That way they can't, like I'm using the mouse ball again, and it doesn't move around. So it should be okay on that kind of piece. Other little things, again, you'll figure out how picky I am. You'll have that kind of curse here, but it says USA. I think we all know this. So I'm going to go ahead and take that off, just showing you other features. If I go to map, and again, I go to background layers, it has all these things that you can actually put. You can try to do the washout. You're like, oh, he said it didn't exist. Problem is then it washes out the whole map. And so it doesn't work with a dot map. So what I'm going to do is there's lots of things you can actually add on here. I'm going to go in, see where it says country region name. I'm going to uncheck that and you'll see USA go away. So it's one less distractor that we don't need. I also don't like that it has the state L. I really just want it to list the state. And so there's multiple ways I can modify that. I could go in here and just do this drop down, and I believe, I can just rename this and just name it state. Right? That way, then when you go on the tooltip, when you hover over, it just says state. If you ever did want to modify things, like in the tooltip, you got to be careful because the functionality gets a little bit funky when you do this, but you can click in here and like maybe I wanted like average revenue for some reason to be bigger. I can change the font there and then it does something like that. Or if I want to move the ordering, I could go in Control or Command X, go up here, paste. I don't think that looks very good, so maybe I'll do 12 or something like that, so it's a little bit bigger. I may kind of honestly like a space as well. Do okay. Okay, so we're maybe halfway through there. Let me show you that simple table. So I'm going to click on New Sheet, and I'll just do again, maybe just company. So company table, and this is only because I want it in here. So I'm again going to bring over the company name. I want all the members, and then let's just do their ranking. How about that? So let's do ranking under rows, and then I'm going to do a show me. I'll do this, and I want it to actually list that this is the rank. And so I think I can do, let me see. I really want the measure names also on there. So if I add that and then do here, how do I want to label you? It's hard because I really want the rank there. Let me think. Measure names. Let me add one other thing. Let me do like 3-year growth rate. Like it doesn't really matter. And then I'll do this. Okay. And then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to pull off 3-year growth rate. Oh, it still wants to. Let's show revenue then as well. I'll have to kind of dig deeper into that. Let me see if I can just drag it down here. I cannot. So I'm going to bring revenue. I probably should have just duplicated that other table that I have here. All right. And then I'm going to go ahead and sort this by hopefully ascending. And then I'm actually going to put this table into that map, into the actual tooltip. And I'm going to mess up first here, but I just want to show you how we do it. So we would go click on the tooltip button. I click down. I'm going to do this insert tab, and you should see this sheets option. And so I want the company. Oh no, it let me name both of these. I'm betting it's this one here, and then I'm just going to do okay. And then when you hover over, right now it's working off of, it's either too large to view. It looks like this one has like multiple companies in there, but it is the way that I want it. And I put the wrong rank table in there, which I think is fine. So we can modify this view so that it does hover and we see it. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into the tooltip, and I just kind of have to play around with this. So I'm going to make this maybe 900 and let's do 900 and 900, and I'll do okay. And I hover over it, and then I can see the various companies that are in there, which is, I think, really, really cool and really, really nice. So I can get a little bit more detail on those pieces. Okay, so then, because I used that other table, I don't need this one, so I'm just going to go ahead and delete it and make sure I didn't go away here. All right, so that table's in there, which is really nice. Okay, looks good. Okay, notice something small here. Notice the name is cut off there. So I would actually go back into here, and I don't know why. There's no like auto fit on this thing. Like, in Excel, you can double click. So a lot of times, like I have to click and drag and make sure I can kind of see everything. If you wanted to make it taller, you could actually do something like this, and eventually it'll wrap the text so that you don't have to do anything too crazy here. Again, I've just got to be a little bit cautious on this piece. But again, I always have to go back and check and make sure it looks okay in there because it does update everywhere. Okay, let's go ahead and save. Save as. I don't want to save as, I just want to save. File, save. And then let's build a few other kind of small visuals where maybe we can do a little bit more work. So I'm going to do, again, another sheet. I'm going to, let's look at the average rank by industry. So what I could do is I want to look at the rank factor. And so I would do rank, I would double click, or you can click and drag. And here's where I'm going to want the average across it. So I could do measure average, and then I want it by industry now. And so I'll take industry and I'll just drag it to columns. And so it's always set up alphabetical. I don't know that it makes a whole lot of sense in the way that here, like generally with bar graphs, I'm kind of thinking, okay, I want this sorted biggest to smallest or smallest to biggest, something of that kind of nature. Right, so that way I can kind of see manufacturing has, in this case, the highest average rank, which is a bad thing. I would want probably, I don't know, the best. And so I could do that. I'm going to create what we call a set to look at maybe industries with the highest average rank. Let's see, is that what we want to kind of put on here? I think so. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to do rename. I'm going to do, let's do top 5 average rank by industry, something like that. So that I'm going to have to create a set off the top 5 here. As I really just want to show 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, these 5 here in this case, rather than like have them all. Just because I want to focus on those. So I want to show you how to create what we call a set. So you're going to have to go off a categorical variable, which we know is industry. So we're going to do this drop down, and we're going to do create, and we're going to do a set. All right, and then we're going to go to this top set, and I'm going to just say this top 5 rank by industry, something like that. And so I have to tell it by field, and I do this. I'm going to just change this to be 5 rank average. So I'll do okay. And then it looks like nothing happened, but then I have to tell it that, hey, I want to apply this filter. And so it goes to default in out. And if you wanted to just look at it differently, you could just go in and do all or anything of that nature. But then it's just in and out of the set. So I can see my top 5 in this case. And it looks at the average rank, which maybe that's not what we want, right? A lot of times we can change this thing up. And so I honestly don't really like this graph. I kind of want to look at maybe top 5 by growth rate, if that kind of makes sense. So I could bring this out, and then I'm going to get rid. So it tries to do some dual bar graphs, which we're not going to mess around with. And then I need to modify my set here, which I would just go over here, and now you can see a set is right here. So I would just do drop down, and I would do maybe, where is it? Edit set, top 5, and then I don't want by rank, I want it by growth rate. And it's still working off of industry because that's where we kind of built it. And then we don't want some, we want average. That way we don't have the same number of companies. So we'll do apply, we'll do okay. And then again here, I want to make sure I'm showing the average. So I would do measure average. And then again, I would then order this left to right. Do some very, very basic cleaning. Then kind of formatting wise, small things. Notice my names are kind of cut off. So this may be one where I kind of have to mess around. You could make it taller. So if I go this direction, um, if you want, generally with longer names, I will honestly flip it and do something like this. And then just make sure that this kind of works out. Great. And so I then need to edit this title. And this would be something like top 5 growth rate industries. And I'll do apply, I'll do okay. And then just little things to kind of clean this up. I may want to label the actual growth rate. And so I will go, I'll have 3-year growth rate. I will put it on the label. Again, it's going to try and do the sum. So you can see kind of how frustrating this can be quickly. So I'll do measure average. Once I have that, I don't really need these labels, right? So I could right click, uncheck show header, and then you'll see I get kind of persnickety later on about grid lines. So I'm going to flip this thing, and then I'm going to right click, and I'm going to do format, and then you'll see these kind of lines over here. So kind of like Excel, you get in deeper, and then a new kind of toolbar shows up. So I'll go here. It says sheet none. You still have to press it, and then you're going to go across the rows and the columns and make sure it's still none. Then it's a little bit cleaner. All right, and then what if I want a bottom 5? So again, I'm always kind of making sure I can kind of see this. Actually, I want to do a color on this. So I want color also to show me with this. So I'm going to do growth rate onto color. Again, it starts with sum. Do this, measure average as you go across. So now I get color and size of the bars kind of showing me. What about the bottom 5? Well, let's right click, duplicate, because we've already done that work. And then I just need a new set. Now I'm going to have to actually create another one. I don't think you can duplicate sets, but let's check. I'm going to drag it off. I'll do the drop down. I can't duplicate, so I'm going to duplicate. And then here I'm going to edit the set. And then I'm just going to do bottom 5 rank by industry. I'm going to get rid of the word copy. Then I'll do bottom financial information, 3-year growth rate, average, do apply, do okay. And then I'll have my bottom rank here where I kind of put it. And now this one I probably won't want as blue. Now they're still relatively good because that's the top, it's the bottom 5. So I'll go in here because they're the top 5,000 growing companies. But generally, if I'm thinking bad, I may change the color on this. You could, again, click here. I can click on color, edit. Maybe instead of the blue, I want to do, so orange is actually kind of a common one for negative. And then in this case, I want this to be the darkest because it's actually the lowest. So you can actually reverse the scale on that kind of piece. All right, so you can close across, make sure that looks good. All right, so then I'm going to right click, rename. Let's see, bottom 5, this piece. Last kind of set of visuals. So I'm going to do a scatter plot. So if I wanted to see, hey, maybe revenue and workers are related, I could build a scatter plot where I show those. So if you have 2 numeric things, it's going to default to that. Now, it does it in kind of an odd way. And so I'm going to just go ahead and rename this, and I'll say scatter. Let's do workers versus, let's do growth rate, something like that. And again, if you want to do revenue, I'm sure do that. So I'm going to start, I'm going to drag this, I'm going to think workers. I'm okay with sum for now, and then growth rate for now. And it always starts as 1 point because it's trying to sum and then sum and put on 1 point. So if I want to see a dot for each company, there's multiple ways to do this. Again, if I'm thinking intuition-wise, I've seen other people go to analysis and they'll uncheck this aggregate measures, but then they don't know why. And so what I do is I'm going to take the actual company name and I'm going to drag it onto what we call detail, right? Because that's going to be like, I'm going to get a detailed point for each company. So I'm going to click on that. And now I can see basically by workers and revenue growth rate for each company. So I can see this company right here, like Boohoo, it doesn't have that many workers, but it has a whole lot of growth, and a lot of that's kind of percentage wise. And so it's interesting on that piece. Now, I don't like that it says company name general, so I would do small things like go into the tooltip and then delete this, just as kind of small things. I would do okay. Um, and then honestly, like I just really don't see a whole lot of data in here. And so maybe this isn't something, because I know I have 5,000 companies and I can't really see a whole lot in terms of relationships. And so you can do small things where you right click and like exclude. You could also modify the view in the way that you want to see it. You could change the variables that you're looking at. So maybe instead of growth rate, I bring over revenue. Maybe this looks like maybe a little bit more, I don't know, creative or useful. So I would go in, I would probably then rename this first revenue. All right, so it's so easy to kind of play around with these visuals. So small things that I would kind of clean up on this, I would right click, I would format. I'm definitely going to go in, get rid of the grid lines. I know they look like they disappear, but on all three, make sure they do, because if not, you won't be able to kind of save it. And then for us stats people, we can go into this analytics tab and we can actually bring over like something simple like a trend line and start on the linear and say like, is there actually a relationship? It's really nice because then you hover over and it has like an R squared, it has a P value. If you wanted to look at it. And so this is where maybe you want to be a little careful here. If I had better maybe categorical info, this would make more sense. But if I wanted like a different, or to be able to look at this via different industries and stuff, it's tempting to bring industry onto color. And then it's like, there are a lot on here because you're going to see add them all like, oh my gosh, the rainbow. So this may be one where we have like a different filter with it. We can modify this where it only shows one. So you can actually right click. You can go into, I don't know that I want to format this. I kind of more want to go in and I think it's on the axis. Let me try this. I'm going to right click and I'm going to do edit axis. And then I'm going to go to, let me think about this for a second. You can modify the axes. We kind of want to keep these here just so we can kind of see it. Let me see here. You can look at the statistics piece of it. Okay, I had to think a little bit through it. So up here in the analysis tab, trend lines, you can do where you do edit all trend lines. And you have all these options where it could show confidence bands. I like that. And you can undo per color. So you can still show things in the different ways. We generally don't want to highlight a selected data point to have those pieces. But then if you wanted for some reason to show maybe the industry, I would be very careful with color here just because there's just so many colors. You could maybe do something via shape or something like that. It helps when there's like 3 or 4 categories, which we don't have in this data. So I may want like industry onto shapes or something like that. We have all these ones, which may not make a whole lot of sense. So I'm going to undo. Later on, I'm going to use it for filters, if that kind of makes sense. Okay, and again, I could keep adding in those filters, but I want to show you little tips and tricks when we get to the end. The last thing that we'll do is we'll do what we call this kind of tree map, where maybe again we show, instead of just like a bar graph, top 5, bottom 5. Let's go ahead and do that. So instead of using a bar graph, because do we have any other bar graphs? We don't, but maybe I'll think about one. Maybe I'll do a bottom 5. You could do this show me, where it has the tree maps, where then it has this, it's using size. So if I click on show me, you can see the color here, but it's also using size to show. So big, and again, we reversed it, but I'm going to label the same thing. So instead of dragging from the left, if you really want, If you know it's here, you can actually hold Control. I think this is true on Macs and PCs, but you can also put that on the label, and then you can kind of see those pieces. And then on the label, you can actually click on this, go in. You can maybe make this like, I don't know, 14. You can mess around with the alignment where it's in the middle and vertical, stuff of that nature. This may be one where, oh, the font, if you want to kind of mess with it, you can go in. Maybe we have this at 14, and again, I'll click on this. This would be maybe 12, and then again, on the label, I'll go in. This one, maybe I want that to be bold, and I want a space. I can do apply. Okay, so it's a little bit easier. So then you have kind of what we call a tree map that you can use instead of a bar graph if you want. So let me think if there's anything else before we kind of put these together into a dashboard and make sure they look nice. So I have this, have the various ones. Make sure if there's anything else I kind of want to build. We don't really have numeric data for me to go across. I hate pie charts. I think this will be good. So let's go and create a dashboard. So for dashboard, this is how we bring things together. So it's this second one on the bottom here. So you click this, and this is what you're actually going to save and show me. So we're going to spend some time again talking about this, piecing some stuff together. If you want, I would go ahead, rename this instructor, and then I would create a new one. I do not want a story. I should have done that. We'll do stories later. Do a second one here. And we'll do rename student. So this is what you're actually going to save looking at and then publish to your profile. So for now, I'm going to save. I'm just going to do save. And then let's talk a little bit about this. So let's do some dashboard designing. Again, this layout looks different as kind of everything else does. So along the left, and the reason that I was trying to be strategic, you may want to expand this a little bit in terms of the visuals that we were building. Here are all the different sheets that we'll be able to drag in. It has, again, a different layout. You can think about designing on a default on a phone. We're going to just do default and kind of think about it that way. Later on, we'll kind of mess around with this sort of hierarchy kind of piece and kind of the formatting and stuff of that nature. We have our kind of location pieces. We do have like different hierarchies that we can have kind of these various pieces, and that'll come into play later on as we go through. For the sizing, so this is I think the most difficult piece of this, especially as we're thinking about where this is going to be displayed. So we're going to keep it primarily on our Tableau Public profile. So I generally, some people will go at the automatic sizing. You can try that. It can get clunky, and it kind of puts things a lot of different places. So I'm going to go with like a fixed size. And then later on, I can mess with custom, but I'm going to start with like a very basic something where I'm kind of looking online, like a desktop browser kind of piece, because this is probably the most common that you'll get. And again, we can modify it as we want and as we go through here. So from here, there's a lot of different things that we can kind of bring in. And you're going to bring things in two different ways. One, there's this tiled version. And so that is, I bring something over and it fits a tiled space. And it always starts with the whole thing. There's also a floating version where you click it, and when you drag, it goes here, and you can drop and move it around. I don't like this one. This is actually how Power BI works, which you'll see later. So we're going to work a lot with tiled. This does take some just practice as we go through and kind of think about what we want. And so again, we're going to do very, very basic things, and I'll show you some common practices here. This is an introduction to the tool. You can go very, 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 very deep into this kind of piece. There's lots of like containers and stuff, and even I don't mess with a whole lot of this different stuff as we go in. And so I'm going to think about maybe, so I want to keep this at around maybe 3-ish visuals. And so I think, and again, you're going to build your own. So I'm going to bring in maybe, which ones do we want to kind of think through here? Because I may have to make another visual or two kind of for you or with you. I'm going to do, how do we want to kind of think about this? I'll bring in this map. I'll bring in the table, and then maybe I'll bring in this, kind of want to filter by industry since we have that one later on, and it's hard to bring in like a top 5 average, so bottom 5. And I'll bring in the scatter plot. How about that? And so, okay, so I know I want to bring in then these 3, so maybe I'll move them around here just so I kind of know what I want to bring in. Then if I go to my instructor dashboard, it should give you a little preview on these things. So I'm going to start off, I'm just going to bring my map in, I'm going to drop it. It automatically fills the whole space, and then it brings in all the legends, which I'll want later. And right now, this just kind of, I don't know, it takes up space that I don't want. And we're going to kind of play around with it. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to bring in my visuals. Then I'm going to start like naming things, resizing things, things of that kind of nature. And so I'm going to bring in this table. I think it makes more sense to probably put the table across the bottom. And again, you have to be kind of cautious about where you're dropping. So you can kind of see I'm holding this here. I'm going to go across, so it kind of goes across the entire bottom. So I'm going to drop it. And then it doesn't fit very well early on. And so our goal is we definitely don't want this space. I don't love this kind of scroll piece, but for now, I'm just going to be kind of a little bit cautious on kind of there. And then maybe I resize it so it just at least fits this whole thing, and I don't have to like fill this, and it seems kind of clunky. So to do that, you can click on this drop down, and then you're going to see this fit option. So you can do this fit, and then it's kind of like the dashboard where we kind of see it before, but I'm going to do fit, and then I'm going to do, I wouldn't do entire view because then it's going to try and squish all 5,000 into here. So like it doesn't make any sense. So I'm going to do at least fit the width of it. So at least goes all the way across. It has things spaced. Things actually look really, really nice. And then I'm going to maybe make it a little bit smaller, something of this nature. Maybe I'll make it a little bit bigger as we go through. And then the last one I'll kind of put, how do we want to do this? Do we think that scatter plot would make more sense as a full piece, as maybe one across it here? Or do we want to show something different? Let's think about how we want to do it. Yeah, let's bring our scatter plot maybe. Let's just see what it looks like maybe next to it here. Right here, and so it kind of fits, and again, it's kind of squishing things together. So I may want to do, I'll go back to fit. It's already trying to fit the entire view. So I may have to, again, now go between, just size this up a little bit. Maybe this is a space where I need to go in and modify it here. Rank, it may just be too wide. So I kind of play around with this, or I'll click on it just to see my lines. And again, you kind of have to be a little bit careful here. I don't know why. Hit escape to reset tables. Then what I want to do is I really want to modify the width of these. So I need to be, it's interesting, I'm only seeing one piece. Let's go to this visual and maybe play around with it. So to do that quickly, instead of going back across the bottom, you can actually click this go to sheet kind of piece. And then I may try and condense things there. Maybe make this one a little bit wider so that it displays a little bit easier. It's interesting that it's trying to condense. Oh, it's because my table doesn't fit all the way, so I'm kind of doing that. So nice thing is once you go there, it usually modifies, but you can kind of see it doesn't really like this, which, let's see if I can try this again. Fit the width. I'm going to do, let's go back to standard. Okay, so now it's trying to do that, so I can kind of see the width. All right, so now this may be one where I need to kind of modify the graph this way. It's just there's so much dead space here. I want to maybe do something like that. Okay, so we can kind of see it. Makes kind of sense. Then I can start thinking, okay, where do these go? And again, I'm gonna buy myself this space a little bit later. You can leave this as tiled if you really want. It's kind of up to you. I do like to kind of show a bunch of different features here. So what I may do is maybe I'll pull this filter, and again, it's going to be huge when I drag it over, but I could across the whole top. And then I want this average revenue to actually be down here with this map. So I'm going to do the drop down, and I'm going to make this what we call floating. So I'm going to change it to be floating. So then I can start kind of dragging things around. And again, this takes a little bit of kind of practice and patience as we go through. All right, and the reason I'm going to keep this here is because I'm also going to then go back and I'm going to do a show dashboard title. So underneath here, I goes in and instead of naming it, I'm going to do something along the lines of top 5,000 fastest growing companies, and then just analysis, something like that. And again, it doesn't have to be the same. It's up to you. And see, be careful because it has typos. I would maybe do something where I want to center it. I do apply, something like that. Here we go. And then I want to have kind of basic overviews here. And so now I don't really need this because I think the table is kind of intuitive. So you can double click in here. I would go back, I would delete, do apply, do okay. Because it has, I think, basic information. And then I don't really care that it's scatter of workers versus revenue. So maybe a little bit more professional here, where I go in and I would just do something like revenue versus number of workers, and we do apply and we do okay. And so it's maybe a little bit cleaner. Now, these are obviously taking up way too much space. And so I can actually, if you right click and edit the axis, this thing will pop up and you can start modifying how this thing looks. And so you may need to go in and actually change like what the units and stuff are on. You can modify and see different ways through here. You can do custom, but it may be that in the sense that we want to like not have all the different full marks on here. So we could do something where we do none. I don't know that that would make a whole lot of sense. We could do fixed. In terms of the display, I think we'll have to go in and we don't want reverse, we don't want logarithmic, right? Because that wouldn't make a whole lot of sense. We're gonna go back to our actual visual here. And then I'm gonna find a way to format this. So I need to right click and it's gonna be under the format tab. And then we'll do the scale and let's see if I can change the numbers. Let's see, standard versus custom. And then the units, maybe we want to do, it looks like it's in millions. We do something like this. Billions isn't going to work. We could do billions because it isn't billions in revenue. So we could do something like that. Then when we go over and we look at our dashboard, it's just a little bit cleaner, right? So it kind of gets us space. And then I don't think we actually need like at least the title on these, like the headers is what they are, because we already talked about them. Now, if you think you need them, you can, but I think the units do a good job here. So I'm going to go back again to this visual, and then I'm going to right click. I'm just going to uncheck show header. And now that way I'm like, well, like I kind of still want to see it. So I want to undo this piece, right? And then I want to see if I can, let's see. I don't know if I want to select the marks. I want to right click and do format here. I don't really know that I want to display those pieces. So we may kind of be stuck kind of displaying them on here where, oh, I can modify the title. So instead of this, I can just delete back. And then I wish there was like an apply button, but there's not. So I'll go in here and then instead of custom, something like this. All right, so again, we're just giving ourselves a little bit of space as we go through. All right, so small things. You can do the same thing where you have fit an entire view. Most of the time, it's kind of being normal on that kind of piece. And then this title, maybe I want to go here. My scan's not working. I'll do apply. I'll do okay. And then I'm just going to kind of modify things a little bit. All right, so maybe my map's a little too big, so I want to do this here. And let's say I wanted Alaska and Hawaii. Well, I have lots of dead space here that I could use. Let me modify this. So this would be, yeah, I may do something like count and average revenue by state for top 5,000. I'll just say like, say maybe let's do number of companies, and then I'll use a more descriptive header later. And I'll do apply. I'll do okay. So I'm going to bring in Alaska and Hawaii here, and you're like, well, there's no way, right? If you're doing tiled. So what I can do though is I can go to floating, and then I can bring in Alaska, right? And I'll put it up here, right? And then I'm just going to go and maybe put it like this in the space. Again, it's a terrible title. So what I'm going to do is I'll go here. I want to then delete my title. I'll do apply. I'll do okay. Something like that. So I can then just see the state. I would then probably do the same thing for Hawaii. I'll bring it over onto this piece, and then I'll double click. I don't need this header. Do apply, do okay. If you really wanted to bring in Puerto Rico, you could also brought it in down here. Again, I'm not going to use that kind of piece. Let's see, then it brought over a bunch of these industry filters, which it could, then you're gonna have this filtering Alaska, this filtering this, which is not what I want, right? I'm gonna close this, and right now, if I do the industry filter, right? So let's say I just do computer construction and I do apply, I do drop down, it only updates this map, but I really want it to also update all of these, which it's actually very easy to do. It's if you do the drop down and you do apply to worksheets, and then I always do selected worksheets, and then I tell it, well, I also want this to work on company table and the scatter, and then I do okay. What you'll see is these then adjust, and so that is really, really nice. I'm going to do a Paul or industry there and do that. That way, then all of my things work off that filter. And then there's other ways that you can then have this map also interact with this and this and this. It's called an action. So for here, this will be the last kind of in-depth thing I show you. I'm going to do dashboard and then actions. Lots of different ways to do this. I'm going to do add an action where it actually filters. So like when I hover over Texas, it filters the map and things like that. You could do highlight those different pieces. For us, we're going to stick with filter. You're going to get this action. Always name this. So I'm going to do something like, let's say, state filter. And then you got to be really, really careful on how you tell this thing to talk to one another. So right now, it's saying, okay, when you menu, which is really just click on all of these, what actually changes? And when it changes and you undo, what happens? And so to make life easier, and a lot of times if I'm not guiding the viewer, it's hard to let them know, like, hey, I need to click this. And so I'm going to select hover. And right now, what I'm going to do is I'm basically going to say, when you hover over Alaska, continental, so this map, or Hawaii, then this table and this will interact with it. And so I'm going to do undo these. So I only want the scatter worker revenue and then the company table. And so then if I have It could also be that if I had company table here, then it's going to filter this map and show me that information. That feels like a lot, but let's go look at it and see. So I'm going to do okay. So hold on. I also need to check show all values. That's why when we hover off, it resets. If you don't do that, it can be kind of complicated. So I'll do okay. I'll do okay. And it looks like nothing happens. But then if I do this, you'll notice, right, my visuals start to change and go across here. And so that's really, really nice. Same thing with like Alaska and Hawaii. So then it becomes a little bit kind of cleaner. If on the other hand, so I'm going to hover off, if I then go over Fuhu, right now, it's only interacting with this map up here. So I'm guessing that means my action may be a little bit off. If I kind of hover over here and I then hover over a spot, I think that then makes more sense. And so I'll go back into dashboard. I'll do actions. I will then do this. I'll just double click, or you can do edit. And so right now, company table is saying it should. And you may think, well, why is the map then not doing that? It's not interacting. Right? When I hover over Fuhu, it's not actually doing anything up here. Well, a lot of that is because it has no idea like what state or anything that is in. So it doesn't know what to connect on. So if I go back to that actual table here, you can see it's now added things into the tooltip. And so it's basically said I'm working off of this action, and it got added on a filter here. So kind of thinking those pieces, what you have to do is under the state one, because that's the one it's highlighting, what we're going to do is I think if you say add to context, then if you go back to instructor and you hover over, still doesn't want to use the state on there, does it? I don't like that it says distinct account of company name either. So we're going to modify that piece. So let's go back to our map. I'm going to go into the tooltip, and I'm just going to put something like number of companies. All right, then we do okay, and it looks a lot nicer. So then in here, oh, I don't have the company name in this piece. So what I'm going to do is let me actually add company name to filters, and then I'm going to do just okay. There a lot. Then if I go to instructor here, it's interesting that it doesn't want to talk to that piece. So dashboard, actions, edit. So it is, if I go over the company, oh, because I don't have them checked. Come on, Gray. So let me check all these back on here. My apologies. I do okay. Now if I hover over, it at least will go into that state and kind of show you those various things. Now this is getting maybe a little bit too complex because it's like looking at this company, it's saying there's only one in there. So that's why it may not make sense to do that, but we could have it highlight the state that it's in. That would be interesting. So what we're going to do is we'll do another action. So first I'm going to change that action. So I'm going to do actions, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do edit, and I'm going to uncheck my state factors here. Okay, so I'm going to do okay. Then I'm going to do add an action, and we'll do a highlight action. So this will be table to state, and we'll do hover, and then I really only want it to be from that table. And then it can also, I guess, be the scatter plot, and then it only interacts with the map. And so I'll do okay, now let's see if this works. Yeah, where are you? It's not highlighting the state. So generally when that's happening, I need to go in. I don't know what's happening here. Our map from Hawaii is causing problems. I'm going to do edit filter, select from list. Again, we want none, and then we only want Hawaii. Not sure what happened. Do okay. So then hovers in. Let's go back to this. Okay, that makes sense. Then what I'm going to do is, so the map, I will go to this map. It does have the company name in there. does our company table have the state in there? Does not. Let's first see if I can add this to context. I'll go back and see if that works. It does not, so I'm going to go back to this. Not really sure how I want to keep the state on here. Let's put the state in the tooltip. So let's do state into tooltip. So if you hover over, it'll tell us the actual state. Yeah, in there. Now let's see if that works. There we go. So now it hovers over. So it's trying to figure out like how this thing kind of links. Okay, so I think that's enough for now. If you're a formatting person, a really cool thing to do is when you have this dashboard here, you can do this drop down. You can do edit title, not edit title, come on, Gray. Do the drop down and then you do, let's see, format title. You can also, so it has this like default shading. So I think there's a lot of white on this. So I may do something where I do like a light gray or something of this kind of nature where it makes a little bit more sense. I think that looks cleaner. You can also get to that from the dashboard format option, and you have like other things that you can do. I may then do something like bold, apply, okay. And then I'll show two little tricks. We always want to tell the people how to use our visual. So that can be what we call a text box. So I would bring that floating. I would find text, and maybe I'll put it here. You could put it on the bottom. It's kind of up to you. Where it's just like hover over the visuals to, I don't know, reveal how the other the visuals generate. I'll just say hover over the visuals to interact with the data. Maybe I'll say use the filter and hover over the visuals to interact with the data to learn more. And then this, I usually make it kind of either stand out a little different. So I made bold, italics, and it starts off really, really small, like this, because it is floating. So I may do something here, this way, kind of this way. And then the last thing is you could bring in images that do things, and you can do a lot of cool things with images, something of that nature. If you are someone like this is already kind of bugging me, I may do edit title and put it on there like company overview, just because it was bugging me that it was kind of offset. So this may be one where I center, apply, and do that. You can actually bring in, like if I wanted to brand this thing, I may honestly, and I'll have these logos. So I had Anthropic build me a logo. So I may do something like I'll bring in this image, and then I will insert an image, will fit to center. I don't need a URL, but if my website or something like that was in there, I would do that. So I'll go choose an image. And again, you'll see these. I'll have them on D2L for you. Chandler, data assignments, some logos. It's up to you which one you kind of use. Yours may look a little bit different. We'll do apply. We'll do okay. And then we do something like this where it should fit. Now we have a branded dashboard, which is really nice and clean. And so let's save this. I probably should have been saving along the way. And then I'm going to save this to Tableau Public. So I'm going to do File, Save to Tableau Public. And the first time you're going to have to go through and log in, so make sure you remember that information. Don't try and reset your password from here. Go to actually Tableau Public to reset it and then come back into here, because I noticed that it just doesn't work as well from here. So I'm going to sign in. I'll save you that. All right, once you do, make sure you're looking at this visual. We're going through. It is kind of going through and it's pulling up on my second screen. So what will happen is you'll be able to see it, something like this. I would always go, so the way that I kind of grade it is I go into full screen mode because it may look a little bit different, right? If you're like super zoomed in or something, or super zoomed out, like I've seen that before, and sometimes this will cause problems, but then kind of go into full screen, you can see it. Hopefully the spacing kind of lines up. Sometimes it gets a little bit clunky. The interaction takes a little bit longer to work online, so don't kind of stress on that piece. So that's kind of fun, and this looks relatively nice. So this will be your first visual. You should be able to just copy this URL and share it with me in the folder. You could also go to share and then share this link. Please note that if you do change things and update it, the link changes. If you want to edit small things, you can actually go to sign in. I don't know why my internet's not working. Let's try, it's refreshing. Go back. Hopefully. All right, so if you want to change kind of small things or you see small stuff as a new piece, what you can actually do is once you're on here, you can go into edit again as you've logged in your own profile, and you can actually edit things in here and then you just publish. Like, so some people don't like that there's all this white, so you can actually right click, and it's a little bit more limited online, but you should be able to go here. I really want to format this. Oh, so I need to go to the visual, and then I will right click, and then you should be able to do format worksheet. And then you could do things where maybe you want to shade in the worksheet, which is like a color that matches it. And it has the hex codes. You could go look it up where it kind of matches. And so this looks ugly, so I'm not going to do it because it's easier if you actually go, I think, into the tool. You can right click and format, and then you can do the shading on that kind of piece where hopefully you can kind of see which one kind of matches the best. And maybe that looks a little bit cleaner and you like that. So you can do small things up there. I think it's a little bit harder, but you can also do that and just republish it. I'm going to close this. I'm not going to republish it, but you can make those edits there if you want. All right, so first off, take that one, and then now I want you to build your own dashboard. And it doesn't have to be that kind of complex. It doesn't have to have actions, but I want you to at least think and make it somewhat nice as you go through. This would probably be a good visual to probably put on there and then just spend time kind of cleaning it up. You could have this. Again, if you don't like these pieces, maybe you have these two on there, so it's easy to see the top and the bottom 5. If you wanted to create other visuals, you could do that. But yeah, all I need is, I think, at least 2 where you kind of think about it as you go through, because there's not a terrible amount we can do with this data. If you wanted to do maybe one more cool thing I could show you, if companies knew, or if you knew the company you wanted to look for, you could actually bring company name into filters, and then we'll do select from list, we'll do apply, we'll do okay. What I would do here is I would do show filter. It's going to be crazy long. I wouldn't do a select. You could do this, what we call wildcard match. And so this is kind of like a search bar where you then could add that in. If for some reason, just last little bit of tip, sorry, like if you got rid of this or something, or you wanted, maybe I wanted to add that filter here now. So I could go here, any of the visuals, I think I added it here, right? Let's just see, I can do this drop down. Usually any filter we create, we could do filters and then distinct company count, company name. And it comes out, oh, nice. It comes out actually the way we want it. I would do this drop down. I could do, and again, you don't have to do this for points. I'm just showing you. I'm going to do the floating, which is, my brain is tired. I'll do this. It's something of this nature. I would do like search for a company, where you kind of modify this and do okay. And then again, you want to make sure this interacts with everything else. You would do apply to worksheets. You could do using this data source, but I like to select. So I'm going to put it on all of the ones that are on here. We do okay. All right, and then again, I would save this, save to Tableau Public. So then you're going to build one. You do need to save this as a different name, right? So I would do something like file, save as, and I would do uh, student edition, because if not, it's going to overwrite that piece. So yeah, have fun, and let me know if you have any questions.